Just been listening to the president where he made comments about the encampments on college campuses, talking about peaceful protest is okay, but you cannot be disruptive. UCLA, they have cleared out the encampment there. So joining us now on the phone is CBS News national security contributor Sam Vinograd, and she's a former assistant secretary for counterterrorism and threat prevention at the Department of Homeland Security. Sam, one of the things that President Biden said on his way out, often the questions or answers or non-answers are more interesting than the remarks.
100%.
He was asked whether or not the National Guard should be brought in, and he said no. What do you make of President Biden's remarks?
Well, let's remember why President Biden likely came out today after weeks of calls for him to do exactly this. We are facing a public safety crisis in this country. State and local officials have been trying to contain that public safety risk in cities and towns and states across the country and have been, in many jurisdictions, unsuccessful. The decision to put the president out today was likely driven by collective analysis from security officials as well as other members of his senior team that he needed to reassure the public that he was not just being briefed on what's happening across the country, but that he is prepared to advise on policies and operational matters to ensure that public safety is maintained all across the country. That was the impetus for why he came out today. In terms of his being questioned about the National Guard, there is a long way to go at the state and local level prior to calling in reinforcements from the National Guard or from other federal authorities. We did see at UCLA California state officials on the ground helping to de-escalate the situation there. So well before federal authorities would become involved, Anne-Marie, and I was involved in this operational planning, well before federal authorities would become involved or members of the military like the National Guard, there are a range of options that state, local, tribal, and territorial jurisdictions can draw on prior to that.
And so, Sam, what power and responsibility does President Biden have in this situation? I mean, he doesn't really have authority over university presidents. Perhaps that was the reason why that question regarding the National Guard was pertinent, because that is one area the president does have, but he's not prepared to exercise it.
He's not. And again, I think that will be a last resort option for the president. But it sounds like, based upon his remarks, he is not taking any options off the table over the longer term, but he does not feel that that's necessary at this time. And again, having been in the room for these kinds of operational discussions, all options are reviewed. And an escalating set of steps are considered ahead of drawing on the National Guard or other federal resources. But the president really, from his remarks, had two things really stuck out at me. Number one, he very much, of course, vocally supported the right to peacefully protest in this country and the broader protections under the First Amendment. But he did indicate that not everything is admissible and not everything is covered by the First Amendment, and really clearly called out the hateful rhetoric and the criminal activity that's taking place. So he did not make this a zero-sum game. He indicated there's a spectrum here, and that's how it's viewed in the eyes of law enforcement as well. He also came down very squarely to say that there will be consequences for unlawful behavior. And we have seen on campuses across the country non-permitted activity, whether it be non-permitted protests and or potential other criminal activity, go unchecked for a series of days as campus administrators have struggled with what to do. The president said very clearly that if something is unlawful, that the rule of law will hold. And I think that those were two really important messages for the president to deliver, even though ultimately right now punitive measures are, of course, at the state and local level.
All right, Sam Vinograd, always great to have your analysis. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. For more on the president's remarks, let's go to Ed O'Keefe at the White House. Ed, so let's talk about what we just heard from the president. Even before we talk about that, Ed, what compelled the president at this moment to make these remarks? Because he had been fairly silent over the last several weeks.
He had, Vlad. In fact, it's been a little more than a week and a half since he took a question on this from a reporter and then condemned the anti-Semitic protests that have been held across the country. A senior White House official I've just heard from explaining why it is the president wanted to do this now says that given the number of violent incidents over the past 48 hours, he felt compelled to speak out. Remember, we're referring now to the ones at Columbia University in New York, what we've seen at UCLA this morning. There have been other removals at places like the University of Wisconsin and Madison and some others that are underway across the country right now. The president, this senior official tells me, wanted to speak out, quote, to discourage violence and ensure that protests remain peaceful. And that's essentially what we heard him say. Walk that difficult balance that university presidents, that mayors and governors have been trying to walk over the last several days as they deal with these sudden encampments on campuses or in other public places, and allow for First Amendment protest rights to be carried out. But then the concern that academic buildings and other public places are being overtaken. And in the case of New York City, at least, the accusation that many of those participating in this might be outside agitators, although Mayor Adams in New York, at least, once again this morning is coming up short in explaining who exactly these outsiders were that weren't necessarily students at Columbia University. So the president speaking now ahead of a visit this morning to North Carolina, and talk about presidential whiplash. He's going to go from this situation to the one earlier this week in Charlotte, where you saw 4 police officers killed. He'll be meeting with the families of those officers before then going to an event in Wilmington, North Carolina, to talk about the economy and infrastructure, which had been the whole basis of the day originally, as he tries to campaign in that battleground state. And look, politically, he's hearing from fellow Democrats, from fellow Democratic office holders across the country. We need some presidential leadership, some insertion of presidential rhetoric into this debate, a signal to the country, please keep it peaceful. Reiterate his concerns about anti-Semitic behavior, Islamophobia, and whatnot. And remember, yesterday the White House announced he'll be giving a speech next Tuesday on anti-Semitism specifically, which has been a growing concern here at the White House among those that advise him on not only foreign affairs but homeland security matters as well. And of course, it's been a big topic of focus for the second gentleman, Doug Emhoff, who's the first Jewish person to serve in either of those roles. And so we'll see what he has to say next Tuesday when he speaks out, and if he says anything else between now and then. And you may hear the whir of Marine One now landing in the back, preparing to take him off to North Carolina later this morning.
All right.
Ed, thank you.